Greetings, and welcome to the How We Do Digital Ministry podcast. I'm Christopher Harris, founder of Faith Growth. You can find us at faithgrowth.com, where we build church websites. That's in 6 weeks, we can help you launch a new website so easy a volunteer can update it, so simple a grandmother can use it, and so beautiful a millennial will browse it. So if you would like to chat with us about building a website for your church, go to faithgrowth.com and book a call. Anyways, on this podcast, I normally have a conversation with a church leader and ask them how they do digital ministry in their community. But today, I have a special treat for you. We are not going to talk about how this person does digital ministry in their community. I have a special announcement. Today, I'm talking with Charlotte Elia. And I'm so excited to be talking with Charlotte today because she is going to be the new host of How We Do Digital Ministry. Charlotte, I'm going to give you a moment, let you take the mic, and why don't you kind of introduce yourself to us so our audience can get to know you a little better. I mean, hopefully they remember that episode that you did several weeks ago, but let's remind them who you are.
Sure. This is a great pleasure of mine. Because this is a podcast that I really enjoy. And so to get to actually be involved with it and to start to drive or shape some of those conversations, but to get to be the very first person who gets to hear the interviews is exciting for me. So yeah, I have a background as a Presbyterian pastor and a little bit of church historian, as well as worked as a church musician too. So those involvement with the church is obviously really dear to my heart. And at this moment, I think I've gone my whole sort of seminary career and past that with listening to people say like, now is the moment when like everything is changing in the church, or this is the revolution, this is it, kind of thing. And it was like, no, it's not, because, church history, right? And then this moment though, kind of feels a little different. If nothing else, it feels or looks a lot more like what happened in the church society, the economy after the 4th century plagues, how that just transformed everything. And in the church in particular, you can draw a pretty straight line from that to the Reformation, the way that the church failed that moment with the plagues, and the questions that came out of that, and the fact that, the rich got richer and the poor got poorer, even during that. Hello. So
sounds very familiar all of a sudden.
Just a little bit. The fact that it unveiled the social disparities, economic disparities, everything else. It wasn't just the plague. That was a focus that kind of transformed people's understandings of everything, right? So not to be apocalyptic about it, because that's not it, but there's everyone, just as we see people refocusing kind of what they want to do in their careers and how they want to spend their time and their lives, there's something happening, a restructuring within how both what church wants to be and how people want to engage it, right? And that's why I think this conversation around digital ministry is so important, because it's both an opportunity to draw people in who haven't been engaged with the church before, and an opportunity to broaden, to experiment with, how the Christian life is shaped. So I'm really excited to be part of those conversations.
Awesome.
So that's what I get to do. But what the heck are you going to be up to?
Oh, very good question. So, my dear listeners, it has been a fun to be your host and to have these conversations and to help the church figure out where it's headed and how it's going to do digital ministry. But I have decided to take a step back and kind of do some background work at Faith Growth. We're kind of we're kind of growing, and we continue to want to help churches and support churches in their digital ministry. And we do that primarily through building websites for churches. And we're getting really good at it, quite frankly, people. We've gotten, used to take us 6 months to get a new site out. We got it down to 12 weeks, and we have a new program rolling out right now. We're going to get it down to 6 weeks. So I need to focus more on that. So I'm going to focus on helping the churches that way. But Faith Growth does want this conversation to continue, so I wasn't going to just let the podcast go. So while I'm focusing on helping churches more directly with their digital presence online and building websites and creating communication systems to communicate online, I decided to ask Charlotte if she would take over the show, because I think the conversation is so important. And you already got a great sample. I mean, she just drew us a line from the plague to the Reformation to where we are, as we're seeing what the church is going to be post-COVID. And so I can tell you she's going to be a great host. And that was, one of the reasons that I was excited that she was interested in doing this. I followed her online for a long time. She was a guest on the show, but I really enjoy how she likes to push the church to think about what we need to do next in her tweets and things like that. I know that she has a good foundation of ministry. She's a trained church leader, served in the parish in several capacities. And so I knew that she, and with her history background, could be a good facilitator of these conversations and helping. As we just figure this all out, there is no standard yet. And it's going to take a lot of experimentation. And this podcast really just wants to be a place where we can take a posture of experimentation and discuss and, throw some spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. And so she's going to be a great host, and I'm excited that she took it on. I'm a little sad because I did enjoy the conversations. So I'm a little sad about that, but it's better. Quite frankly, I'm a little bit more of a behind the scenes guy. So this is a better fit. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And that's why I asked Charlotte if she'd host, because I think she's such a great host and really appreciate that. So I'm going to go ahead and officially throw this back over to you. I am no longer the host of How We Do Digital Ministry. Charlotte is the host of How We Do Digital Ministry. So it is her show from this moment on. And I'm going to throw it to you, Charlotte. You take over and go.
Well, let me take full advantage of this then. You as a host have been, I think, so gracious, offering your guests this platform to both speak about what they're doing and, where they're going and the things that are they feel really important that they need to speak, to use this opportunity to get out there. Right. But you're in the midst of everything yourself. So there's insights there that let's hear it. I want to know. So I want to kind of start with a really big question, which is, what are some misconceptions or sort of the greatest misconceptions between, what you see churches thinking about or pastors thinking about versus where you really think things are going? What's in their way that they just have to get over to move forward?
That's a tough one because, it's a problem we've struggled with for years in the church. And it's just, as you know, there's always something else in ministry you can be doing. There's another hospital visit. There's another, Bible study you could lead. There's another something. And so what I really see is this is very important, but it's new to everybody in the church. And so and everybody kind of knows it's important, but, finding the time to find the priority to make it that priority is what is really hard for everybody. And, I know it's hard, but we're going to have to carve out time, church, and in your week and prioritize this. Maybe it's just 2 hours where you're learning on this, or you're focusing how I can start doing ministry online, sharing, a lot of times church websites are really good about telling you when the potluck is, when the ice cream social is. But when somebody goes to Google, because that's where they're going to go these days, and they're asking their faith-based questions, are they going to find you if all you're talking about online is the ice cream social and the other, Bible studies and other events that the church is doing? No, they're not going to find your church. So we have to be sharing the faith-based content, all that stuff that we're doing in our buildings right now. We need to learn how to digitize that. And so I think you're going to have to carve out a couple hours a week minimum to start making that a priority and experimenting to see what that is going to do. Because unless you make it a priority, it's not going to happen. And case in point is the pandemic itself. The church caught up 10 years in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
There was nothing new about live streaming. There was nothing new about going live on Facebook. Quite frankly, we caught up to where technology was 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But we did it in 2 weeks because we had to. And I'm grateful that the church did that. I'm grateful the church rose to that occasion. I'm grateful that the church, did that ministry, especially in such a time when we didn't know what the heck was going on. And we were locked down and all that. So we did good. But I use that as an example of it has to become that priority. And it was the priority for several months because we couldn't even leave our houses. So now as we're coming out of pandemic, or really not out, just whatever this new normal is, because it's definitely, the pandemic is still out there and still killing people. We have to make a priority. And that means you're gonna have to carve out, I say, let's just start with 2 hours a week. And then how can you start taking some of what you're doing in person and begin to digitize that? So I'm not even asking you to make anything new yet. And if you are so confused by Instagram or TikTok or whatever, you don't have to go there. Go with what you know and start right there. And usually that's going to be, let's start posting some blog content, or let's cut your sermons out of your video and let's post them as a podcast or something like that. So anyways, it was a long answer, and I think I kind of covered 3 different things. One was kind of, you're going to have to carve out time. 2 was, we know that we have to make it a priority, and that 100% from the pandemic. And the third thing that I kind of covered there is we have to start publishing digitally, and let's start reusing the content. And if you need any help with that, talk to me, faithgrowth.com. Does that answer your question? I kind of wove three things together there.
No, it's wonderful. That's great. I think it's such a good reminder, like the positive aspect of the fact that churches jumped 10 years in 2 weeks, that should be kind of both congratulatory.
Yeah, pat yourselves on the back, church.
Yeah, but also, like, if that could happen, you can do that again. I mean, we're all still tired from that. I get it. Yeah. But think about other ways that the church actually can be transformative, can be nimble. Is really an extraordinary example of that, of an institution that we normally think of as only saying we've never done it that way before, and things like those mantras.
Well, what is so interesting about that, and what I find, we are ripe for this, because I've spent the last 10 years working with different organizations in my area, marketing, professional organizations for marketers. And what I find most interesting, as marketing has become more individualized, like Facebook ads and things like that, and blogs, and it's not so, the Super Bowl ads are still a big thing, but like ads, so one to many is not the mode of marketing anymore. It is, kind of one-to-one in relationships. And what I've really learned is we're actually ahead on this front as a church, because we know relational marketing, we know a story, we know how to share all that. We just don't know how to do it digitally. And so when I listen to these marketers half the time, like, they're using our language, for Pete's sakes. They're like, they want to enter into a relationship online. They want their brand to have a relationship with these people. Ultimately, they want the people to have a transformative experience with their brand. I mean, for them, that's typically a purchase of some sort. They want them to become such raving fans that they're willing to start giving testimonials about their brand.
Right.
And they're doing all this kind of one-on-one. This is evangelism 101, church. And it's what we've been doing for hundreds of years. And we know the model. And that's what works that's what works actually online. It's about building relationships getting into a relationship, nurturing that over time. And ultimately, we have the gospel message, which is a message of transformation. So we know there's going to be transformation. And so it's just, in these marketers that are working for business would kill for original content. And that's what they struggle with. They got to create new content and that. And like, the church is the only place I know that week in and week out produces as much original content out there. We just distribute it in person only. And I'm not saying quit distributing in person. I'm just saying we got to turn some of that into digital so that we have the opportunity to connect, engage, and begin to nurture these relationships, because they're not going to come to your door to start learning about Jesus or to learn about your community. They're going to go to Google, and they're either going to say something like church near me, or they're going to say, how do I find Jesus or something, like he's lost. But anyways, that's how it's going to start today. And most of our systems, we have good systems to bring people in, but they're all kind of predicated on, they start when somebody shows up in our door. Mm-hmm. And that's just not the way it's going to happen anymore. So we just need to go online with what we already know how to do. We just need to learn how to do it in a digital way. And that's why this show exists, actually, because we don't know what the best digital practices are. And so that's, what are we going to do? We are a community of believers with a multitude of gifts. So we're going to discuss together and see what the Spirit is doing in the church, and learn from one another, and learn from how God is moving, to find those best practices. Anyways, that's my long tangent on, we're actually so positioned, and I listen to these marketers and I'm like, what they're struggling with, we're just struggling getting online. What they're struggling with is like, we already know how to do it, and they're having to figure out, how do we actually start relationships, and how do we tell the story of our brand? And it's like, we've been telling the story of our brand for years. Some people even say it's the greatest story ever told.
Is your church website a mess? It could be difficult to navigate or doesn't represent you well. You want your site to be more than just an online brochure, but you don't know how to make that happen. Imagine having a beautiful, easy-to-use website for your church that helps people find the information they need about your church and its ministries quickly and easily. Faith Growth will build a beautiful, effective, user-friendly website for your church in as little as 4 weeks. Our process includes everything from a free initial consultation to the full setup and training, so you can grow your digital presence and reach your community. Schedule a consultation at faithgrowth.com, or, if you're not ready yet, get your free guide explaining the process to get a website that reaches people and gets results by going to faithgrowth.com/guide.
Where do you think, in your thinking and you're talking with church leaders, and you're just watching what's happening with congregations, where do you think the church may be in 10 years?
Oh, I definitely don't believe the church is going to die or anything like that, because you do hear some people like that. But I think it's going to look a lot different. Mm-hmm. A lot different. And then we probably will see the closing, because we have a lot of small congregations in really rural areas and things. And I think we will continue to see buildings closing. And I say it specifically, buildings closing, because I don't think we're not closing the church, but we are not going to be able to sustain some of those older models. And so what we're going to see, though, in replace of that, is we're going to see, I think we're going to see models where it kind of moves online, and all initiation is going to happen online. All, where we meet people, how the conversation starts, that will all start online. And we'll also start, we got to start getting our messages out there. Because, right now, if you go, like, how to read the Bible, no churches are coming up on that. It's a bunch of bloggers. They're Christian bloggers, and some of it's not bad advice, but no, the church, which supposedly knows how to do Bible study, we don't rank in Google and we're not teaching that online. So we're going to have to get our practices online, practices online, and kind of that whole initiation online. And then what we'll see from there is a lot of, I think, the technology. So that's kind of one side that we have to get ready for. Then the other side is the technology. And this is where I don't know 100%. This is where we're going to co-create it together, people. But the technology is going to enable us to really work together. And so we're going to see, where denominations in the past kind of brought us together in different committees and everything. I really think technology is going to replace a lot of the work of a denomination, especially for bringing mutual ministry together. And so we're going to continue to see the decline of our staffs at the kind of national and other adjudicatory levels, because it can be deployed into local churches, and we can hop on Zoom and you can do all this and literally around the world. So our missions around the world, but that's kind of, we're going to have to figure out the technology and how do we really work together. And so things will become more multi-point. So geography is not going to matter as much, and we'll see people, there will be physical outposts still. I mean, especially some of the big, beautiful ones, they're not going anywhere. Worship will still have a personal component. But a lot of the organizing and things will be kind of online, and it will be more mutual. And we won't see, right now, a lot of times, every church is their own little island, even though our theologies and our teachings do different. But in practical speaking, they're really very much an island. So we have an opportunity to work together more. And then the other thing I want to say is, like, in-person will never go away, because every online community that's been important to me, at some point in time, the community wants to meet in person, and they will go out of their way, and they will travel even. So it might be that I'm connected, quite frankly, right now, I am connected with a church in New York City, and I live in Dallas, Texas. And I do plan on going to New York, hopefully this fall. And part of my, while I'm in New York, I will worship there, and I will go and meet some people in person and have some lunches and dinners and things of people that I've met online. And I'm excited to do that. And I'm excited to get on the airplane and do that. So we're going to see people will be more willing to do that. So geography is going to be less of a point. We're going to see that, but we're also where geography is not going to matter anymore. The day we're recording this, the day before we're recording this, Airbnb announced that their employees can live and work anywhere in the world. They're going 100% remote. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to cut their pay. So, like, Airbnb is based in San Francisco right now. So, people are getting paid a lot because the cost of living is whatnot. So, So in other words, you're about to see this company disperse around the world. And so jobs are going to do the same thing as what I'm kind of talking about with the church. It's going to become non-geographic, and communities are going to form there. And the same thing, like, they still believe a lot of creativity is important in person at Airbnb. So they're going to have a once a year all hands that everybody has to fly in for somewhere in the world. It'll be a week long, and they're going to pull their whole company together. And then individual teams will get together at least quarterly for kind of meetings. Some of the teams will get together more often depending on what they need to do. So they're coming up with this model of, we can do a lot apart, and we can work, we can be wherever, but we'll take those gifts, and we still need to do the in-person, and we're just going to get on, instead of paying for an office building, we'll pay for a bunch of airplane tickets. And so that we'll see that same thing happen in the church, similarly. And especially because, like, one of my dreams is I would love to go on, my laptop is all I need, and I can run my whole business. Mm-hmm. So I would love to be a little bit nomadic for a couple of years and go and visit different things, different places and different countries. And so what would be exciting is if I'm doing that right now, or, pre-technology, I could still have my faith. I could still go visit other churches and things. But how awesome is it that I can stay connected with my community while I'm hopping around the world? I can also still try out some of those fun churches in the countries I'm going to, which I would do, but I still have a regular place I can check in. They know my name, they know my prayer concerns, they know the joys, they know that. And I think that's powerful. And that's why I'm really enjoying being connected with this church in New York. I mean, if I need to visit with the pastor, I just send her an email. We hop on Zoom, and we do pastoral care that way. And and done Bible, part of a Bible study that meets almost weekly in the lunch hour. So that's like awesome to do Bible study on Zoom in the lunch hour. I don't have to go. If I was to go to my physical church, it would take me, 30 minutes to get, the church I used to attend in Dallas pre-pandemic, it'd be like 20 minutes to get there, 20 minutes to get back.
Sure.
So now a lunchtime Bible study becomes a 2-hour commitment.
Mm-hmm.
And now I just hop on. And anyways, the question was kind of where we're headed. And so we're going to see, I think, less buildings, more mutual ministry working together enabled by the technology, lessening of importance of the denominational. I don't think denominations are going to go away because the denominations do help us, what we kind of, all the denominations in my mind, some of them are very close, but there's a little bit different emphasis in how we, the praxis a lot of times is just a little bit different because of focuses. And so I don't think that part will go away, but kind of the churches will be able to organize themselves. And so some of the organizing efforts that we see at the larger things is going to go away, and the money to support it's going to go away. So the big kind of intermediate structures aren't going to be needed, and they're not going to be funded, and they're going to go away. And then we'll see, just like a lot of businesses are going to go non-geographic. We'll see people attending church that way as well. And I should mention that's only going to be about half. I mean, what's going to be interesting, because I did just paint a future, because I'm a tech person, that I think is really cool and exciting. But it also, I want to acknowledge it's a future of privilege. And something that we will have to watch for is there'll be kind of a bifurcation, because you will have some people, especially the hospitality industry and those things, where they're always going to show up. Servers have to show up, hotel maids have to show up, and things like that. So we will have communities like that we need to continue to support, and they probably I don't know how they will attend. I can go anywhere, so I know how I'm going to attend, but some of them, though, maybe it will be not. The nice thing for those communities is that sometimes they work really weird shifts, and it might be hard, so it might be hard for them to come and worship on Sunday morning. So now some of our technology will enable them to worship when it really fits with their work schedules. So we'll see advantages both ways, and and I think something else the church needs to work on is, I think internet access is a justice issue, and we should be involved in it as a justice issue. But I hope in 10 years we've kind of solved that, to be going back to your time frame. But I do think we need to kind of, I am kind of giving the big tech, and and the big tech companies are going to be the first ones to go remote and everything, and a lot of companies will follow suit, but in the service industry, it's never going to go remote. Well, never completely remote, because I guess you could argue that Uber Eats is, the person's still there, but it's making the restaurant remote. Anyways, that's a whole nother, sorry. Okay, that's a tangent. But anyways, that's kind of what I think for the future of the church right now, which I think is dynamic, but I think it is 100% different than what we've experienced in the last 100 years, or even the last 20 years. And this is changing so fast, because you go, well, they didn't teach us this in seminary. Well, this is changing so fast, we couldn't even put together a curriculum. So we're just doing all this on the fly, and we're all in it together. It doesn't matter if you're a pastor for 40 years, or if you're a pastor, like you're graduating seminary right now, this month of May, and, getting ordained this summer. We're all in it together. We don't, what we kind of understood church to be for the last 10, 30 years is not what the church is going to look like in 10 years.
Yes.
So
yeah,
that's where what I love about it is, because I'm a big incarnational theology person. So it's like this, all of us, as Martin Luther would say, little Christ, are going to come together and co-create this. So with the divine, with each other, we are going to co-create this new church. Well, I shouldn't say new church. We're going to create this new manifestation of the church in the world. And that's exciting. It's daunting, but it's exciting. So anyways, I hope I answered I kind of went all over, but I
No,
hope
that's good. No, I don't. Wow. I mean, no, I think everybody's been a privilege by a brain dump from you. So that's a lot of amazing thoughts there. I think we've got time for one more question. And so I'm going to ask you your favorite one. I'm going to ask you that I think has roots in that youth pastor activities too, right? So this, Christopher, where do you see God online?
Oh, lots of places, but I think for me, where it was, I mean, I'll tell kind of where I see, I'm going to give two answers, one kind of historical and one kind of immediate or more like every day right now. But I mean, for me, what was when I graduated from seminary in 2008. And when I came out of seminary, I was still discerning whether or not to get ordained and and dealing with committees and what is God really calling me to do. And I thought I was called into parish ministry, but apparently not. And, so it was a really, it was a fraught time. And I, kind of the discernment. And I mean, for about 2 years, it was an emotional roller coaster. And I was mad at God, mad at the church and lots of things. But where I kind of continued to see God, though, was this also 2008 is when Facebook opened up to the rest of the world. So this is with the beginning of social media. And I was able to connect with other church leaders. And not so much even that I was even sharing the story, because honestly, I wasn't sharing the story much at that time because I was still too much in the middle of it. I didn't know what, to share. But being able to connect with other, professional type church leaders that had been to seminary and everything like that, and to start hearing their faith stories online, and, kind of like, in what ministry, how their ministries are going and how they're leading, and just kind of learning from them. And, it was kind of like this, where I kind of saw God as it's like, nothing's ever as bad as you kind of think it is, and nothing's ever as good as you kind of think it is. And just, and so my network of church leaders really grew even more than like when I was in seminary with them every day. And I really, as a result, my faith really grew. It expanded. I mean, it was kind of like for me, it was like a finishing school almost, I think, online. And where I saw God was like, I learned a lot of this heady stuff in seminary, as we do. And then I kind of went online and started interacting with this people. And I should mention, because we met originally this way, I mean, a great deal of these people were involved in a little movement called UNCO, which was an unconference. And, so kind of through the people and their stories, I was able to kind of take that head knowledge and learn how God, where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. And so that was a really important time of healing. And it was, and the connections were, as I was living kind of alone in Dallas and I was out of that community of seminary every day, I was able to still kind of have that connection. And so through these leaders online and just learning how they were doing ministry, that was kind of how I saw God. And it really, it took me from a real all the heady stuff, and it helped me start to see it more applied. And ultimately kind of helped me grow into, I can help churches with technology. I don't need to be because just quite frankly, a little thumbnail of my story is, it's like I'm trained to be a pastor, but some days I don't know if I want to be a pastor, not because I can't preach and teach, but I don't do the administration very well. And I don't always suffer fools well. And that's kind of part of it. Yeah. So being able to kind of work alongside the church and help with this piece of technology that is something I'm also gifted with has been a blessing. And so anyways, that was a place that, I mean, that transition and that kind of where the call morphed into was really helped online and being able to connect with people. Because I might have left the church if I hadn't had those connections, because I was pretty mad at God at those times. Okay, and then the second place is I mean, honestly, I still see it today, and I think it's the relationships. And I hear the stories, and I see what's going on, and I really love. I'm on Twitter. I love the stories of what's going on in other churches, and it's the simple things. It's not the big things. Uh, somebody posting about a children's sermon where a kid, answered a question really silly and made the whole church go. And it's just like this, I mean, sometimes getting my head around this God is hard. We don't see this, we don't touch this. And I tend to have more of a heady assent to my faith to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So it's to see all these little examples and wait a second, it is this experience and it's this community that God has called together. This is God. And so that's where I see God online, is when everybody's sharing their stories. But yeah, so to me, it's really seeing the stories and seeing the faith lived out, seeing the people that are working for justice, seeing the people, that are just preaching on Sunday. And so, yeah, I see God in the ministry that I observe online.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Christopher, for chatting with me today.
Yes, this was awesome. I've been a guest on this podcast now. Yay! Actually, one last thing I'll say is that I'm also excited because I will get to start listening to the podcast because I don't always like to hear my voice on tape. Or not, well, it's not tape anymore, but
oh no, we tape this. It's reel to reel.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, well, I did the interview, and I've listened to very little of all the previous episodes, and so now I'll subscribe on my podcast app of choice, and it will be something that I will listen to every week now, and I'm excited about that. So.
Well, great news, because starting this coming week, there will be a new episode every Tuesday for you and everyone else to enjoy.
Yes.
So thanks again. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We want to invite you both to subscribe, make sure you get those episodes, but also go ahead and join our private Facebook group, How We Do Digital Ministry. That link is in the show notes. And so that's another place where you can join with colleagues and discuss all things digital ministry there. But
yes.
Until next week,
yes.
Peace and blessings to you all.